Alright, the audio is good, so we're gonna get right into it. I'm gonna read this article, and then I'm gonna read another one, and I probably will stop after that. We'll see for sure. So this one was written, it's actually kind of funny because I talked about a job, so I stopped putting my name on my articles because of this job that I had. But the funny thing is that I didn't really do that for long, because the alternative would have been that I would just quit the job, which is what I did. So I stopped putting my name on things, basically. Written from February 22nd and 24th, 2017. So we are just gonna jump right on into it and see what commentary I can have. This is actually part 1, and I never wrote part 2. So, yeah. But it's called The Perspective Crisis, Part 1 article. I published it in March 2017 on my blog, at least. But into the video. Okay. Trigger warning. I believe suicidality, suicide prevention, just topics about that and everything, just so that you're aware. It starts with a quote. Can suicide really be a choice if it's the only choice available? How expanded or contracted our perception becomes impacts the choices that we make. The quote above is from Mark Henick's TEDx Toronto talk, which I really recommend because it's a really good talk, titled Why We Choose Suicide. He explains that perception is a constricting and expanding view by which we see the world through our biological, psychological, and societal factors. He poses his startling question towards the end of his talk, but it was so poignant and my writer's block so thick that I decided to start with it. He continues to pose a scenario for the viewer. Imagine you stayed there, stuck in that narrow, dark place. My perception had become constricted, darkened, and collapsed. I felt like an asthmatic that had lost his glasses in a hurricane. Mark goes on to explain his brushes with suicidal actions and his struggle with depression in his own life, and how important it is that we all start having the conversation about mental health conditions and suicide. He believes, as well as I, that these conversations are too important to not be spoken about, whether or not we are ready or comfortable talking about them. They need to be brought into the light and out of the shadows, which is a theme that you will see a lot of my articles and just kind of my life in general, my advocacy and stuff like that, so that's an aside. So with that, I would like to discuss perspective, because it matters and it is important. Google defines perspective as a point of view or particular way of regarding something. To me, in my life, perspective is the ability to see beyond a current moment. Remember too, this is 2017, so I had a very unstable baseline. I wasn't emotionally stable. I was really emotionally unstable a lot of the time, and I was just very much symptomatic in my disorders. So, before my mental health conditions made my perspective constricted, I would be able to see ahead in my life, years ahead, and have goals and dreams that I wanted to accomplish, which is pretty much where I'm at now, so that's pretty cool. Nice little turnaround. When the depression hit me, that skill of perspective dissipated. At its worst, I recall not being able to answer what I wanted to do or plan to do that given day, a week, a month, a year later. I didn't have perspective. The future was a blank slate, and the past didn't exist either. It was like being shrouded in a blanket of nothingness. Even now, 2 years later from where that slip of perspective occurred, I do not operate with a larger sense of perspective. Nowadays, I am able to have my natural explanation of what I want to do over the summer, into next semester, after college, onto graduate school. The depth of those intricacies is for another article, however. But I have the ability to perceive a year's worth of time. I have vague ideas of other dreams like writing books or making projects come to life that I want to get done during my life. Yet they aren't clearly defined or detailed yet. still kind of aren't. Now, if you ask me what I'd be doing 5 years from now, 10 years, I still cannot comprehend that amount of time. I feel like I don't now either, but not like in a symptomatic fashion, like more just I haven't thought about it or tend to think about it, so kind of still relatable, but like, you know, it's just kind of, it's different. I still cannot comprehend that amount of time. For instance, I'm trying to convince my family for us to get another dog. My previous dog, which we had for 12 years, passed away in the summer of 2015, and while I've had 2 hamsters in the last year, one that's still alive now, he's not alive anymore, but yeah. One that's still alive now, they're not quite the same as a dog. Granted, I'm glad to have any kind of living creature in the household, but I have a special love and admiration for a dog, which we wound up getting like June 2017, so it's kind of funny. My family argues that a dog is a lifelong commitment. I don't see it. I am distinctly aware of working with the present moment, the next day, a week, a month, and a solid year. Beyond that, I cannot yet think of it as a lifelong commitment. They just do not exist for me. There is nothing there for me to look towards. Part of this, I believe, is because there's a deluded part of myself that believes in the message of the mental health conditions that I live with, that I am destined one day to die by suicide. There are many faults and flaws with that logic, but I digress. And again, this works both ways, for the past and the future. If you asked me on a day in which I had a constricted perspective about my childhood, I wouldn't be able to put myself in that reflective mind state to answer your question. I would say, I actually was thinking about it yesterday, but I'm reading a book right now. I'm actually reading a really good book. I'm gonna jump and show it to you. Sorry. You're just having me. Ow, my fucking head. My fucking ankle, man. I'm reading this book currently. Just have to read this book. It's really, really, really good. Like, I didn't think I was going to like it, and I didn't quite at first. But it's called You're Worth It by Kyle Carpenter. And it's really, really good. I won't talk about it too much in this one, but while I was reading that book, I thought more about my childhood and stuff. And I went through, I don't really think back to when I was a kid and stuff, because I was kind of an asshole. But I dealt with more like physical health issues, and then when I was a young adult, I dealt with a lot of mental health issues. So there's that, but like, I don't tend to think about my childhood. It wasn't really bad or anything. It, like, definitely not like traumatic or anything like that, but like, I just don't like to think about it. I kind of separate myself into like that happened to somebody else. I'm no longer that person, so I don't have like a cohesive like storyline. It's just more like bits and pieces, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just don't like most things. I just avoid it. Oh, we're almost done. Cool. So I wouldn't be able to put myself in that reflective mind state to answer your question. I'll admit this self-reflection makes me feel as though I ought to be more alarmed than I am. Regardless, I believe there is more to be said about perspective than can be articulated in just one article. So I hope that you will pick up the next issue when I discuss more about this idea of perspective and branch into what future plans I do have for myself, as well as coping strategies. And that is where the article ends. And then I never wrote a second part. But, yeah. I like legitimately never wrote the second part of this. It's just like, I guess it was like one of those things where like it was like relevant at the time, but then like as time went on and a lot of things happened, I just like never went back to finish it. So I think it's one of those things too where like so much changed since then that like it wouldn't be the same if I wrote like a thing for it or not, so I just haven't. But there were a few articles that I wanted to write that I never actually got to write. I don't know if I'll one day write them or something, but I think that might be an interesting kind of thing. That was that article. It actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot worse, and it wasn't, but I think the next one is. I think I will try to do the next article, and then I'm going to maybe try another article, and then depending on that, or I'll just wait a while because the next one's going to be triggering, so yeah. But oh, my favorite article is almost coming up, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, so I'm going to go book for this book. It's really, really great. Guy, Kyle, who he goes into the Marines when he's like in his 20s, and when he's 21, he winds up like jumping on a grenade that landed on the top of a building in Afghanistan, and he like jumped on the grenade and then it blew up, and he kind of had to go through. He was wounded and stuff and went out of the Marines, but then like went to the VA hospitals and stuff. And it's a whole thing. But it's a nonfiction book. It's really, really, really good. Oh, I love the part where he's having his lowest moment, and like when he has his lowest moment, it has like photos of things that he got to do, like his journey through like childhood and everything like that, and like the incident, and then like other things he got to accomplish, which I thought was really, really cool and really like outstanding to do in that moment of like he's reaching his lowest point, but then like it also shows like he got through it and what he did to like overcome it, which I think is really great. So it's really, really good book. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm almost finished. I have like 100 pages left, so gonna finish that today, hopefully. I devoured it pretty quickly, but yeah. Okay, so I gotta go. Hope that you liked this article or something. I'm just gonna film the next one right away. I'll be filming a baking thing, so we'll see about that. But yep. Okay, so send off. As always, take care. Stay safe, be well, much love and light to you. I will see you legitimately in a few moments. My phone is blinking and I don't know why. I probably got an email. But yeah, so I have to do my hair. My hair's a mess. Okay, alright. Sounds good. Thank you for watching. Give it a thumbs up or thumbs down if you didn't like it or you liked it. And let me know in a comment what you thought. And we'll go from there. Okay. Bye.
We're in the same boat, heading for different shores, facing each other, grasping at different oars.